Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario Nuri and Kirill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at lapsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all gonna have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. Welcome everybody to another episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we got Rob Kaczmark, not Jazzmark, Kaczmark, from Spirit Juice and Behold. So kind of like a dual company here. So Rob, give us a little backstory about you and your two companies.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome just to hang out with you guys. So the two companies, similar to like any business, I think it's important to have like your niche. So Spirit Juice focuses on our faith-based clients, and Behold focuses on our more commercial, secular clients. And I think, we try to kind of have it all under one umbrella at the beginning, but then it sort of waters down, like their faith-based clients because we speak that language and understand that. And then, our commercial clients don't really care about that. And sometimes it maybe doesn't appeal to them. And then vice versa on the commercial side. So I think, for us, it was important that we separated the two and we have kind of a distinction both in the brand, the look. On the back end, it works very similar. I think a well-oiled machine is a well-oiled machine. But on the outward side, we try to serve those demographics a little differently.
It's very interesting, that kind of niche, because most of the time when people talk about niches, they think of different industries, different types of content, animation videos, live action videos, but having one specifically for commercial and one for faith-based. So just to kind of clarify for our audience, that's kind of like with religious organizations specifically?
Yes.
Okay. How did that kind of come out to be? Like, you're the first that has that kind of niche / focus that we've ever talked to. So give us a little backstory on that.
So I grew up, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I grew up, going to church because my mom forced me to. And then eventually I started to like go because I, wanted to a little bit. But I always noticed that like all the stuff at church was like super boring. The media that they were, whether it's videos or graphics. And I'd always, complain to the people around me, like the youth ministers at the time. I was like, why isn't stuff look any better? She's like, well, I don't know. Why don't you do that? And I was like, well, no, that's okay. But then eventually I was like, all right, well, I'll dabble with this. And this goes back to like gateway computers. Like this is like old stuff. Windows, I don't even know, like pre-98, and just like messing around with things. And then starting to get a little bit of a knack for it. And people started to, like a little bit. So time went by. I did that in high school, college. And then realizing there was really a gap in that market, like being around like a lot of like Catholic and faith-based stuff, and the media is pretty terrible, especially compared to just like secular stuff or commercial stuff. And I was like, there's an opportunity here to serve. I was very passionate about trying to like elevate the work that the church does and the people that support it. And so I thought, you know what, maybe I can do this. And, most people thought, my dad included, thought I was crazy because it's like, there's no, he tells me later, he really respected it. And he said, well, how much can we swear in here? Can I swear?
Oh, you could do whatever you
It's
would
secular
like.
here, so you could go ahead.
Okay, good. He's like, you had a lot of balls to do that, son. And I always appreciate that because my dad's just like the hardest worker I know. And so, early on, the first 5 years, it was really hard because no one wanted, the church and stuff, they didn't want to like spend money on media. They didn't really see the value in it. So it was just a grind. I mean, I worked 7 days a week, just doing everything myself, trying to teach it. Because I also didn't go to school for filmmaking. I just was like one of those ambitious kids that were like, I could figure it out myself. And so I just taught myself it as people were paying me to do the work for them. And so it took a while, but eventually sort of carved out a niche. And I like to think that, at least in the Catholic space, people think of Spirit Juice as one of the, the top people are creating, videos. And so like, oh, you want a high quality video? Spirit Juice in the Catholic space. And in other sectors, I don't know how well known we are, but, the niche, I would say the sub niche that we have within that is more on the documentary side. So we have done narratives and narratives are fun and all that stuff, but the documentary, like the storytelling, telling people's stories, that's something really, I think, honed both on Behold and for Spirit Juice.
So when did you diverge from, just focusing, or like, because there's two companies, when did they split?
We tried to split it in like 2011, and it was called Capture Creative, and I started like an LLC for that and stuff. And then there was too many like other companies out there that was similar to Capture, and then it just sort of kind of was like, this just isn't working. So we fizzled that out. And then probably in like 2018, we're like, well, let's just do as a DBA. I actually didn't know what a DBA was, which was doing business as. So apparently, at least in the States, that you can have like up to 5 companies, I think, that are DBA. That number might be off, so don't quote me. This is not legal advice. That you could, have under that same sort of name, like the same EIN number. And so I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Let's do another, it's just, and then, we landed on the name Behold because basically it was the only like URL we can find. We are Behold that like seemed like it wasn't, that kind of was cool. And then we really tried to split that a little bit and like have, we have a different creative director for that than we do for the Spirit Juice side, and try to like, think of things a little bit differently in that capacity. And, yeah, it's interesting seeing both sides of stuff, like working in the commercial side. I also have a little bit of background, back in like, in the 90s, I guess at this point, I was like 15 or 16, but, I was into BMX. And at church, is kind of a random story, but basically people knew I was into BMX, especially the guy at church. Someone reached out to him and said, hey, we're filming some commercial. Do you know any people that do bike stuff? We're doing a bike messenger. So it was my CCD teacher. Which just like teaches religion, reached out to me. Long story short, I go do an audition. Turns out it was for Marshall Fields at the time, which was like a big thing. It was a union job. So I landed the gig. I had no experience in acting or anything like that. And next thing I know, like within like a couple weeks time, I was a SAG actor and like in like a huge thing downtown. Is like big stuff. And then I started doing like for about a year or two doing that. So like actually my first entry into the industry was in front of the camera, sort of unwillingly in a way where like I had no ambition. It just was like I was good at bike tricks and apparently charismatic enough to be on camera to do a few things. I eventually kind of took a step back. Just being in front of the camera wasn't necessarily, it's an interesting life. I'll say that much. It's an interesting life to being in front of the camera. And being in front of the camera, like kind of at that level, like I was by no means famous or anything of that capacity, but just like you really got, it's all about you, like all about you all the time. And like you don't land an audition and it's like you feel terrible. And it's just like this, like I give actors a lot of credit because it's hard to keep going, like the perseverance you must have. So, as Behold started and kind of seeing that both sides of stuff, because the Catholics or the faith-based side it's a little bit of a bubble. It's kind of like the Wild West. There's not a ton of people doing stuff. There's not like as many sort of like expectations that you would find in the commercial side. And so once we started going back into the commercial side, at least like very more intentionally with Behold, I started to kind of see those two worlds come together. like the early days of stuff and the unions and all that stuff, and then that. And so it was interesting, and it was just interesting, like being on that side of stuff, being on kind of like the producer side, and seeing these young, ambitious people like want to make a name for themselves. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm going in different circles, but it's been fun, and it'll be 17 years been in business next week. So
That's a long time. It flies by.
It sounds like you've gone through so many different parts of the industry and definitely gotten experience from both sides of the aisle. Like I had a similar experience as well, like being in front of the camera for a little bit, but same thing. It wasn't for me, not an area that I really wanted to explore further, because one of the big things about acting is that a lot of factors that that might determine your future are things that are out of your control. And that's why a lot of people don't like to stick with it for long, because you really need a huge perseverance to be able to deal with that. But, like you, we like being behind the camera now as well. One thing I was actually curious about, like on the Spirit Juice side, do you find that there's a big market for that in terms of like other production companies also working in that space? Or is it like other companies just do a little bit of that here and there? Or are you like the only one that has like a very targeted portfolio for that? Like, how is that market like?
I feel like in the Catholic side, we might be the largest in the sense of like the size of our company, because we're about like 25, 30 employees that focus purely on the Catholic stuff. There's probably maybe like 4 or 5 other groups, a little bit smaller, and there's a handful of sort of like 2-3 person sort of like small companies that target that. There's not that, despite there being like 50 million Catholics, there's not that much Catholic work out there. I think Catholics think of things, I don't think they see the value in video as much as I think like maybe us do, like, or like the rest of the world. I think, books are still sort of like top tier, like it's the highest like tier of media in like Catholic side of things is books still, I feel like. When you take a layer back and go more just like the Protestants, which would be like just non-Catholic, so anyone else that just like Christian, I think there's a lot of competition there. I think there's a lot of groups that sort of like do that and sort of at a really high caliber. I think the highest caliber you're probably seeing is sort of like Angel Studios, which does like the Chosen series and stuff. I guess it's a little bit different because they do more stuff for like distribution in that capacity as opposed to like work for hire. But it's a challenge. I would say the hardest part, like the interesting thing is like we'll do like a video that's say like a 4-minute profile video. You interview someone, you're spending 2 days, you're interviewing, you get some B-roll, and whatever. That project in a faith-based side would probably, maybe runs around 20,000 or something, give or take, if you're traveling. And the same thing, like on the commercial side, is like easily like 70 or 80,000. I would like some of these like larger brands, and they're just like, oh, I mean, that's not all of them, right? But like, it's just funny seeing like how some of them, like they'll be, oh, it's just a low budget thing, we only got like 70 or 80,000. You're like, on the faith-based side, that's like high budget. And so just the difference, but like, oftentimes because of that higher cost, there's this higher expectation. So every, detail in that has to be a certain way. And there's just like, just certain customizations that, you wouldn't find on the smaller side. So, it's interesting. It's definitely different when you kind of look at the two from that side.
So you mentioned you have like a 25-person team?
Yeah, so we have our headquarters, which most people work out of. We have a few people that are remote. It's in Allsip, probably about maybe like 20,000 square feet here. It's an industrial condo, so it's like
it's very small.
Yeah, no, this is tiny.
We started for the first 5 years. I was in a 300 square foot room that I basically I just lived out of, and everything was there. And then it was a slow growth, and like it is wild looking now where we're at, but it's been a very painful, slow process. And so I'm very grateful. I also like with great power comes great bills to pay. So there are days where I'm like, I do miss that 300 square foot place because the overhead was a lot less. So it's a hard part about like, I think any business, but maybe in video, it's like you build a machine so big and then you have to maintain that machine and you have to either kind of keep growing it. Like I believe that like in business, you're either growing or you're dying. Like you're either growing and getting bigger or you're getting smaller. It's very hard to stay at that like sweet spot. So I think like we might find that sweet spot. Like this is great, but I mean, you got to keep churning ahead. And sometimes you get more work than you can take. And then you're like struggling, and sometimes you don't have enough work, and you're struggling to like pay people. It's hard, and I think like the hard part is like we get into this because we like doing creative things, but now, I'm not doing that much creative stuff. I'm more like managing people and issues and stuff, and it's like, But I think it's just everything has as a cycle and a turn, and so like just trying to be, for me, just appreciating where I'm at and just being grateful, for what's around and not trying to like focus on I wish I was going back to this or I wish I had this or that. So
But because you like to have 25 people means that you're pretty well developed as a company. I'm just wondering, what kind of issues did you face getting to this point? Like, as you were mentioning how you're either growing or you're dying, like what were you doing? You must have faced some moments where your business was shrinking. So how did you overcome those?
It was hard. I would almost kind of break it down to like 3 different phases of business. The first phase, and these numbers are just kind of like, relative. It could fluctuate probably a decent amount, but like, up to say 300,000 in revenue, or maybe even like 500,000 or 600,000, I'm doing everything myself. So and maybe I have like a freelancer here or there for a certain project, but I'm doing everything myself because I don't trust anyone to do anything as good as I can do it. Once I started to hire someone on, which took 6 years till I hired the first employee, I trusted someone to do something that wasn't me, and maybe even take it, do parts. And then after, you kind of get to like maybe 1 or 2 million in revenue, it could be a little bit higher too, where I have a lot of people doing stuff, but they're all reporting to me because I don't trust anyone to like report to someone else. So now where this phase I'm at now is like, I usually have 1 or 2 layers of people. Like people are like the editors or the directors and stuff. They report to someone else, and those people report to me. So now I'm working through people, and I'm not like working through people in a negative way, but like I'm working, like I have to inspire the people that they report to. And that to me has been the biggest challenge because I could see I'll see a problem like, okay, revenue's going down. I could fix that. Like I could literally go and do X, Y, or Z, but then I'm overstepping the person that I put in charge to do that. And so how do I work through that person to inspire them to, want to fix that problem? And I'm at level 3 right now. So I'm at that level trying to figure that out. And there's years that I do it well, and there's years that I don't. The one interesting thing I did is I had like a business coach for like a short amount of time, and he's like, you should do a 360 review on yourself. Meaning like I picked out like 10 people at the company, and they basically told me how terrible I was. It was a very sobering thing. It was like 10 pages of all the stuff that they thought that I did poorly. And I read it, and I was probably depressed for about a week. But he's like, listen, this is your blueprint on how to improve. And so, for me, it was like being aware of like, okay, where could I improve? And also at the same time, like, I don't know if you guys ever watched Silicon Valley, but TJ Miller this is one character in there. He says, he's like, every company has to have an asshole. And I think there's some truth to that. And the trick is like as a leader, you don't want to be the asshole, but you also have to make hard decisions sometimes that people don't see, whether it's for their betterment, for the company's betterment. And so it's a challenging road. And the more you grow, like the reward for good work is more work. And if the problems you solve, the reward for that is bigger problems. So every problem that I'm trying to solve now, my reward is actually just more problems. But like, that's kind of what we sign up for. You know what I mean?
But what was like some of the stuff that your employees were, I guess, suggesting / criticizing?
And also anonymously, right?
Anonymously.
yeah. They write it in a way I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know who that is.
Was it in a box? Like a suggestion box that you gave them? Like walked around. It's like, here, put in your suggestion.
They wrote it. It was all digital, but I could tell by the way like how people wrote stuff.
By who sent the like there's the email signature.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that'd be good. What are some of the things? Gosh. One of it was I didn't let people fail. Like I gave them a thing and then I would try then to fix it for them. So like I didn't give them the autonomy to do the thing without letting that and I'd see the problem and they couldn't fix it themselves. So I would come in then before it was too late, and then I would fix it. And they're like, no, because there is something to be said. One of the guys, he told me directly after this, he's like, yeah, early on, or not even really early on, but he's like, I would edit something, and he's one of my top guys, so talented, more talented than me. But he goes, I will know after I get done editing it, you would just come in and tweak it. So I'm not going to take it all the way because you're going to do something to it. He goes, but once you stopped coming in after and just finish it. And when I told him just to finish it, he would put that extra oomph in and really get it to sing. Cause that difference, you're working on something and an edit and it's at 90% and it's probably fine. But if you put that just a little bit more, there's just that extra polish to it that just really makes it sing. And so when it's on that person, I think trusting people when it's on them to they're the last stop, that they will rise to the challenge. Not everyone will, and some people won't, and then you have problems. And the worst one is you saw it, it became a problem, became a big problem. The client called and was complaining, and you just kind of have to take it on the chin and be like, I'm sorry, I know. And those are the hard ones when you see the problem and you don't do anything because you're trying to allow the person to grow in that, and it comes up. I'm trying to think of other ones people said.
Before you do, I actually have a follow-up question to that specifically. Sure. When you said that you jumped in to help with the edit, does that mean for example, you took the files and added a little bit of editing on your own, or were you just adding in some comments? It's oh, this shot doesn't work here, maybe do this or swap like that. How much did you take over basically?
At that time I would go into the edit. So he would do it and then I would go in and I would just tweak it and stuff. Now I just if I do watch an edit, I just give notes, which is not that's only if things that I'm invested in or I want to see. Projects go in and out without me, without any of my approval or anything like that. I had to sort of you got to sort of, I had to keep taking myself out of things. So letting it run without me. So a project can go from start to finish without me saying or doing anything. There are projects where I do, based on the relationship or whatever it may be, I may have a little bit of input, but that's really the goal of the business. I mean, if you wanted to grow and have it be self-sustaining, if you want to just be a creative in it, then sure, be part of the whole thing. But if you want it to grow, you got to be able to have something go from start to finish without your fingerprint on it at all.
What would you say was another big thing that had really helped the business grow as a suggestion from within your team?
Focusing on the big picture. A lot of times I was just focused on the weeds. There was I'm very into organization. If you came here, you'd be like, whoa, that was an understatement, Rob. I have labels on everything. Even at my house, everything's labeled. I'd like to zip tie all my cables and just have it be very neat and organized. And one of the days I was working late, basically underneath one of the editor's desk, zip tying cables, because it bothered me that they were not there was just a mess of cables and they weren't zip tied. And I felt like no one else knows how to zip tie them as good as I know how to zip tie them. I still would agree. I'm the best zip tire of cables here. And one of the employees, she was a producer. She came in and she's like, Rob, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm zip tying. I was like, oh, I'm zip tying the cables. What do you? She's like, is that really the best? Is she? In one way, she was kind of a little overstep how she said it, but I always tell her I appreciate she did it. She's like, is that really what the owner of the company should be doing right now? And I was like, well, of course, no one else knows how to zip time as good as I do. And then I thought about it a lot, as I'm still thinking about, because this is probably 5-6 years ago. And no, it's not. So I was not focused on the big picture. So that was an example from 5-6 years ago. But when I did that 360, that came up a lot still. I'm focusing on these small details that are not necessarily like important. Like they're important to me, but to the big picture, they're not. And so when I started to focus on the big picture, like growth of the company, building relationships with people that are beyond sort of just like, they're just like coming to us for different things, then I saw, more growth in the company. And you have to grow. Like if you own a company, whether it's big or small, you have to keep evolving, and you can't be what you started is not, you have to grow beyond that, because people look to you as the leader of the company, and you have to inspire them and guide them and instruct them and sometimes correct them. And it's not, it could be a lonely path at times. It could be a lonely path, but I think for me, and if you're built that way, it's the most rewarding. There's a quote, or not even a quote, it's, cause I tried to find it, I couldn't find the clip, but I don't know if you guys are Lord of the Rings fans, or
Yes,
not.
sir.
All right, good. Otherwise I was going to sign off. No, The Lord of the Rings is great. So Peter Jackson, when he filmed the original trilogy, as you probably know more than I do, they filmed it all together, right? So they filmed all the movies together, which took about 2 years, give or take. And there's an interview that with Peter Jackson, the director, and they said, hey, how did you do this? Like you guys, most of you guys spent like more than 1 or 2 birthdays while you're still filming and you're away from home and all this stuff. He goes, isn't it hard? And Peter said, yeah, it's been very hard, very, very challenging. And I said, whatever you thought about quitting, like just stopping? He's like, you know what I have? I've thought about quitting many times. And then I would ask myself this one question: is there anything else I would rather be doing right now? He said, every single time I would answer, no, there's nothing else in the world I'd rather be doing than filming this project. I just love it so much. And so I think about that a lot, because there's definitely times where I feel like quitting, where whatever it is just overwhelming. I say, okay, like in my head, all right, I'm going to quit. Like, what else would I do? I can't think of anything else. So I think for me, that's been the motivation to keep going through all those hard times.
And with big picture stuff, that includes doing things like this podcast, right? Getting to meet other people.
This is his biggest moment.
His biggest moment. I know it's not as exciting as zip tying cables, but
yeah, zip tying cables. There's something therapeutic about zip tying cables. Like they're nice and organized, and then like you clip, like just clipping them with some nice wire cutters. I recommend the Milwaukee wire cutters. Those are pretty.
He even has his own branded wire cutters, he knows.
The way you like zip tying the cables, I like organizing our Google Drive. That's what calms me down. That and doing bookkeeping, just like coloring all the expenses and money coming in. I don't know, something therapeutic about that. when I'm trying to do work, but I don't want to do work at the same time. That's kind of what I do.
Yeah,
it's like the thing where it's similar, where it's like, oh, like I need to organize the office, or I need to organize the camera gear or the equipment. There are like even times where I've gone to the storage locker to just be like, all right, this place needs to be adjusted a little bit. We gotta take out some fluff, put some things on Kijiji, sell off old gear, Stuff that's not really pressing sometimes, that's essentially it. You're doing stuff that is on the to-do list of the business, but
it's like item 37.
It's like item number like 155 of like compared to the other ones that you're doing. It's like you should be working on that video edit that's due in 2 weeks rather than, like organizing things.
How is your growth as a business? Like, did you have like steady growth each year to get to where you are now, or did you experience like bursts of like accelerated expansion?
I would say it was very steady. Strange enough, we had a burst in, I don't know if you guys experienced too, in like 2020 with COVID and stuff. There was like obviously like right when COVID hit, there was like not that, but like after, there was a lot of like people wanted a ton of video. And so there's like this strange burst there, which honestly was like the most stressful time of owning the business, because it was just like, not to get into like that whole thing, but like I had people on both sides of the, everything you could think about COVID. I had all of them here. And so it was very challenging just to keep, I felt like my family was being torn apart, because there's just like so much, it was just spent like based on people's opinions on different stuff. And I'm just like trying not to have an opinion that I share, and just like keeping everyone together and just like going forward. And so it was hard, because like we had a lot of work, and like, I don't know. So, but that was a kind of a jump there. And then after that, I would say it was like kind of like one of these, and then plateaued, and then I would say like this year we're even down a little bit. I think, I don't know, just it's been a little bit like, and they're not saying it's a recession, but I feel like everything's costing more.
We're definitely in a recession. I know they don't want to say that, but I think we can
'cause
all
once they
agree like
say
we're
it,
going through it.
there will be a panic. That's why
Yeah.
if they say the words, there will be a panic. But there has definitely been a bit of a decline this year. I mean, luckily, like there's been like a somewhat of a consistency in some work, but at the same time, you can feel when a business is like, or when the market is like going down. You're getting less calls. Usually, that's like one of the biggest indicator. You know, just general outreach kind of slows down. Like last year, I think we were having at least 1 or 2 different leads on a daily basis calling at the very least. Whereas like now it's like every other day almost, right? And I mean, granted, half the leads that you get these days are like, oh, boost your SEO, or here I am, a voiceover artist. Add me. Yeah. Like, but you know, when the spam dies down, you know you're in a recession. That's...
We also noticed that a lot of like the people that are reaching out, like we're dealing with a lot smaller budgets from what I saw. So we're trying to like still get the work, but we're having to like readjust our pricing structure a little bit,
or the offerings even like it's a matter of like adjusting offerings based on what people can afford and what they're looking for, and helping people get the max value of what they can with their budgets, right? Because at the same time, it's like if a lead is coming to you with a certain budget range, you want to see what you can do with that, rather than just be like, oh, that's too small, let's move on, right? Because again, when times are slower, you have to see what you can.
In this
do,
economy,
right?
we're way more hesitant to pass up opportunities. You don't know where it's going, right? So it's like, let's just try to make it work. Let's see.
Because sometimes what people don't realize with when leads are reaching out, they're reaching out for a specific type of project that might be lower in that instance. And when you complete something that they're happy with that range, when they get more funding to do more work, you will get more consistent work for them. We've had a few clients like that where they've come with something relatively small, and then all of a sudden now it's become like a several month working relationship. Like one client that we have a shoot tomorrow, for example, like we're now on to our 4th project with them over the last 4 months, which is great. So we want to, like, you never know where a lead or an opportunity can go. And the key thing is not to just dismiss it, you know, explore it, see where it could go, because you never know.
Yeah, 100%. One of our largest clients started as just like a one-day coverage, like, you know, cover an event for a couple hours. They liked it, and then, you know, now we do a ton of work with them. And so I couldn't agree more. I think it's there's certainly a handful of ones that like they're low budget, and that's the highest they're ever going to go. And you sort of like, you know, you're trying to milking something that's just not. But at the same time, for everyone, there's like that. There's another one that like has a ton of budget, and this is sort of just like their entry point. Because I know for me, like if I'm going to try working with someone new for whatever it is, I'll start small. Like I'm not going to jump in and just, you know, go spend a ton of money if I'm not comfortable. And so I think being, you know, honoring that project, giving them a good experience. I think that's what I've tried to do, you know, with the business is like, not only are you going to get a good video from us, but the process is not going to be painful because, you know, we could probably all think of a lot of different filmmakers that think this song, How Great Thou Art, is written for them. And, you know, their opinion trumps whatever like the client thinks, and they're not obedient to that project. And so they're just hard to work with, and people don't want to work with them because they just feel like they don't listen. And so like I think for me is like always like the client knows best. And if the client wants, so one of a mentor of mine told me this really, really early on. He said, listen, if a client wants, if they want purple pants in their video, you have to give them purple pants, even if you don't think purple pants is a good idea. I'm like, well, why? He's like, because they're paying you and that's what you want. And it's the same thing if like, you know, when you go to a restaurant, if you order a hamburger and they bring you out a salad, and like the salad's better, don't worry. I'm telling you,
It's healthier for
better.
you.
It's like, no, but I want a hamburger. So like we forget that in the video industry because we're creatives and we're you know, we are, you know, we're so smart and stuff.
That's a good example.
Yeah. I think early on, a lot of people forget that. And I was never perfect with it, but I think I've tried to ground myself in that reality.
What if it's like a ridiculous request or a crazy request? Like, I want a burger, but remove the patty, you know?
You're like, okay. But
But yeah, no.
there's ways to do it too. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I can remove the patty, no problem. Here's what that might look like. Are you sure is that what you want? And sometimes, sometimes you give them that burger without the patty and they're like, this is delicious. Thank you. And sometimes they're like, why am I getting this? And you're like, because you asked for it. Like, I don't want this. Give me the patty back. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to go with your client. Like you said, a lot of the time you have to go with your client's request. Even if to you it might sound crazy, you might give them suggestions like, I think it might be good to do this, but if you'd like to do that, no problem. And then they're like, yeah, let's continue with what I requested. You do it. And then they're like, oh, maybe this didn't work. Might be good to move on to the other thing. Because sometimes, like we've talked about this in previous episodes, where sometimes clients, they can't visualize what you visualize. Like we're in this industry because we are able to see things much later, and that's what clients typically pay us for. But it's hard sometimes to communicate that to them because, I mean, one way you help obviously is with your pre-production briefs, your storyboards, your song choices, your shot lists and everything. And then that's how you communicate it. But even still, sometimes clients can't always see that. And especially when it's clients that have to add in feedback and notes from higher ups on their end, or other people or other key stakeholders that have very arbitrary requests and things like that. They're also trying to make them happy. And you never know when there's a request from a client, usually there's a reason for it. So you got to try to do your best to accommodate that as much as you can.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that I try to remind clients too, especially if I'm talking to them, is that a project gets made 3 times: in pre-production, in production, and post-production. And so we're going to do our best in pre-production to kind of lay it all out and plan for the best. But then also, like, on set, there might be just the interviewee says something really like inspiring that, like, oh, this is great, we have to include this now. Or there's like the serendipity of the moment where there's just like, the grandpa hugging his little child or something. And it's like, ooh, this needs to be in there. And then a post, like, some things that you think are amazing on set, like the client's like so excited about, like, it just doesn't work. And sometimes you got to kill your darlings. So I try to encourage that when I can speak to them, if there is sort of this hang up, where they kind of get stuck on something and, and they're open to having a conversation. But to your point, you got to listen to them, and they know their audience better than we do. Cause they, like, if it's like, they speak to that audience all the time. And so something that may seem kind of silly or ridiculous to us makes sense to them because their audience knows that and appreciates that.
Especially with subject matter that is completely out of your realm. Like, for example, last 2 days I was doing a shoot for a client of ours that deals with purely mathematicians. And all they're talking about is mathematics constantly. And in the interviews, they're talking about certain things where I'm like, I really don't understand the specifics. I understand the general idea, but they're talking about formulas that are so revolutionary with physics. And I'm like, you know what? I'll let the client to kind of like handle like the specific messaging, but I might chime in. It's like, oh, what if we said it like this, based on what they said, But that to your point, they know their audience. They know what they're looking for. They know how people can act and react to certain questions and messages. So you gotta, your client is your best collaborator when you think about it, right? They're helping you create the content as much as you're helping them to create it as well, right?
Exactly.
It's a symbiotic relationship between clients, and that's what people have to remember. It's not like, I know some creatives have the like us versus the client type mentality sometimes, but I feel like once you've become a business owner and you interact more with clients, you realize that there's a very symbiotic relationship from that. One other thing I was actually curious to ask you, and I don't know if this is a thing in the faith-based business, but you said that you specifically work with Catholics. So, like, have you thought about expanding to different markets, like Jewish ones, or or Muslim, or any different kinds of religions?
Even within there's different ones. There's the Protestants. There's
We work with some Protestant groups too. I think the Catholic thing, I'm Catholic, so I know the language quite a bit. I'm like familiar with that. I think there's opportunity. For me, it would feel I think like staying in the Christian lane would be like, I feel like comfortable in that and speaking that language. I feel like, Catholics are Christian, just like that's just a different denomination. Going outside of that, I'm just not familiar enough with it. I'm probably the most familiar with like the Jewish tradition just from, Christianity and different stuff. But the other ones I'm just not familiar with. So I feel like it'd be inauthentic for me to come in and be like, hey, we can do, work for whatever that religion, like Hindu or Muslim or stuff, and be like, but I don't even know like how to speak that language as far as like
It wouldn't make sense.
It wouldn't make sense, and it's almost like a bigger barrier than like say if you were going from like one industry to another on the commercial or corporate side of things, because like in a lot of corporate industries, there's a lot of similarities in terms of content that is needed, and same thing with in religious spaces, I'm assuming, but at the same time, it's like it's harder to kind of. I mean, this is what I'm assuming. It's harder to go into different ones that you don't understand as well. But it's like that in any industry. If you don't understand an industry, how would you be able to sell yourself as someone who's an expert on?
It's easier for
jumping in?
corporate kill because you could just be a generalist and then just go between industries, like
Yeah.
we do. But it's different for when like faith is involved. I had a question regarding like sales on your end. Like, are you still partaking in that, or do you have like someone else doing that for you?
So I have someone that's we have someone that like that's their position. I'm still involved. I try to be, if I can, on any of the like initial like onboarding or like someone reaches out, in like I'm part of that. Being that I'm, the owner of the company and the founder, like I've been around, like my face is, I would say, synonymous with the company. So I do a lot of stuff where I'm sending, emails out to people or making a video on social or Google ads and stuff where I'm like, hey, you're looking for a video to do X, Y, or Z, we can do that. And so if people reach out from those, I try to be on those calls. So it's not like, you get an ad for something and then you like just talk to some other random person. My schedule's busy, but not that busy that I can't be, in those spots. So I at the same time though, I'm usually just there as sort of like a friendly voice. I'll insert a 2 cents here and there, but the other person that's in that position, she will take it from, okay, I will get, after the call's done, she will create the proposal, she'll send it to him, she'll follow up. She's incentivized to do that, financially. So like it's like, that's another spot too, where I had to take it was a hard spot because like I can do this and I feel like I can do it well, but like, to do it on a consistent and a growing basis, you have to have someone else doing that. So in theory, I could not be on any of those and it would still grow. I think I add some value just based on the relationships and, being in the faith-based industry for so long. But I think if you can find people, and there's a lot, we get solicited, and I'm sure you guys probably do too, for like different companies that can do that. Like they use like your LinkedIn profile or like different platforms to send messages out. And then you can take those coming in. But that's time, and there's so much time that goes into that. You talk to a client or potential client once or twice, you create a proposal, you make it look really nice, you invest, depending on how much creative you're putting into that proposal, not just visually, but like the story and what it's all going to be. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is out of our budget. You're like, okay, great. I'm glad I wasted 5 hours of my time, for that. I mean, it's just how it goes. It's so a lot of times it's a numbers game, even when people are interested. Sometimes they're just pricing you. They already know who they're going to go with, but they have to have 2 other prices. I mean, if I'm going to get work done just at the office, I always tell the people here, I'm like, get 2 quotes. Like, I'm not going to go with just 1 quote. And so like everyone kind of does that. It's somewhat par for the course, unless you have such brand equity that you're like, oh no, I'm going like, if you're going to get a new phone and if you're a normal person, you're getting an iPhone.
You're just pissed off like every Android user. But as an iPhone user, I do agree.
Well, right, like it's like, okay, my phone's getting old. Are you gonna, if you're an iPhone user, you have so much brand equity in that you're gonna keep going with it. And I know it's not the fair example because like you're gonna keep going with what you have, but the point is like, unless you have that such high brand equity, you're gonna probably get some other stuff. So most like whenever you're providing a proposal to someone, it's probably, they're probably also getting some other numbers. Even if like they might be your first choice, like they're picking you as their first choice, but they're still going to get someone else, or you might be their second choice. So, I don't know. It just, there's just so much time. And I think for me, it's always a challenge of like, where am I spending my time? Am I spending my time on that side? And then like some of like the organizational side gets a little bit like less care, where I could develop more systems or just more vision stuff. That gets less time. Like, it feels like constantly like you're just spinning plates and like, okay, where am I going to set my attention? So biggest thing for me is trying to structure that with my calendar and saying, okay, this time I'm spending just doing this. This time I'm just spending doing this. And, try the best you can. I think ultimately you're always like, I'm also a dad too. And so I feel like I'm always disappointing someone, and I'm just kind of picking who I'm disappointing. So it's either my family or work stuff or other stuff. And so you just have to kind of be okay with that and just try your hardest. And as long as you put your head in the pillow and feel like you're exhausted because you did everything you could, I think that's kind of all you can ask for.
I'm curious, also like having now grown such a big team, like you've mentioned that you basically do some aspects with different parts of your team every now and then. Like, how do you engage? Like, what is not like your day to day really, but kind of like, how do you typically engage your team in general? Because obviously, like, there's a lot of projects that are going on. Like, how are you inspiring them? How are you pushing them? Like, do you do weekly meetings? Do you do like certain social events with them and things like that? Like, how does that look for Spirit Juice and Behold?
So we have like a week look. We have our staff meeting every Monday, which everyone's there. I say a couple of things. Is there an agenda to that? I have sort of like the two guys that report to me. I meet with them once a week as well. And so we kind of run a show of like from financials to logistical stuff and kind of talk through things. And then we have a wider executive team that has maybe like 6 people. It kind of covers that everyone that reports to different people. I meet my office manager once a week to kind of go over through like bills and that logistical stuff. So there's like, I have placeholders, and then I have a few one-on-ones with specific people, basically the 2 people that report to me just to kind of check in and stuff. So there's weekly check-ins with everyone in that capacity. And then social stuff, I try to do the best I can. So we have like, on a big picture, we have 2 parties every year. We have a Christmas party, a summer party, where everyone gets together. It's just a big social thing. And, that's fun. It's not like, it doesn't move the needle that much. But everyone's birthday, we celebrate. We'd like to celebrate a good amount. So we bring everyone together. If it's their birthday, if they want, sometimes people decline because they just don't like the attention. But we'll all gather together, have cake, spend like, 30 minutes to an hour just like chit-chatting and having fun. And sometimes that's a lot because there's a lot of birthdays in a month. And then new employees too. I still, one of the things I still have my hand in, whether I should or shouldn't, but I just enjoy it. I love photography. I love portraits. And so everyone's employee like headshot I take. And so I get to spend, any new employee, I get to spend a little bit of FaceTime doing their headshot. And then the other thing we do is an employee intro video. We started this, actually started this back when COVID happened, because when a new employee would come, the whole company would sit down for lunch and we just sort of like, chit chat, ask questions and stuff. And then COVID, whatever, like you couldn't, get people together. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sit you down basically in the same chair, the same setup. And I asked them kind of like those Vogue, like 80 question Vogue videos or whatever, where, you have to ask. So I ask a ton of questions. And so I ask them, so I feel like I get to know them, and then we chop it together and kind of make a fun little video. And then we put it on our Slack, and then everyone kind of gets to know that person. And so try to do it, like they say, like, scale the unscalable. So I try to do things that, like, if we grew to like 200 people, like this would be impossible, but we're not 200 people. So, it's a bit of a stretch of my time at certain points, but I think there's a lot of value in that. And all that being said, one of the feedbacks that I still get from people is that I don't spend enough time like interacting. So I'm still not doing it right. It's like the punchline, but, I think just trying different things and adapting based on, just like the current temperature of stuff.
I mean, those are all really good, like, little things that you're doing to kind of try to engage them in different ways than just like a regular meeting or something. It's almost kind of like a more personal way that you're trying to kind of interact with them, especially actually even like breaking the ice with newer people, especially because sometimes it is harder for people that when they join an organization, it's like, I mean, I honestly, I don't know, because Dario and I, we haven't been exactly employees of another company. And
over 10 years.
over 10 years. So I wouldn't know what that would be like, but I can imagine that it could be intimidating for some people, especially when when they come face to face with like the big boss, and then the big boss is someone as friendly as you and just kind of like, breaking down their barriers right away.
Who's also zip tying cables on their desk.
Yeah. It's like the boss is zip tying their cables on day one, on their desk. It's like, you gotta give me more cables. Come on, more cables. None of this wireless.
I can just imagine it's like, oh, why is there a tech here? It's like, I'm not the tech.
I'm the CEO.
Yeah, that's a little too true. A little too true.
It's gonna be now. I can never zip tie things without thinking of you now, Rob. That's what's gonna happen. Anytime I'm zip tying something, I'm like, oh, Rob.
Rob.
I love it.
What's next year for your company? Because like you're already at 25 employees, you must be doing really well financially. Where do you want to go from here?
And trying to go more into the way we pay the bills is like people hiring us to do videos. So I'm trying to diversify enough into creating our own content that can basically be self-sufficient. And so the main outlet of that has been YouTube. So I also have there's a sort of a third company, if you will, that's a not-for-profit. So Spiritus Entertainment Group, and that's it's the mission of that is like faith-based videos for free online. So we have a YouTube channel that puts out videos a couple times a week on there. We also have a kids YouTube channel. Those ones, thankfully this year, they've really started to grow. Like the kids one has like 500,000 subs. The other one's got like 300,000 subs. So it's been, it's been good. Yeah, it's taken some time, I will say. Like there's a long time where it was like 5,000 subs, 8,000 subs. And then like, we started to get, I guess so. Like, I think it was a combination of just like different relationships we built and like running, either running some Google ads or running like, email signups and people like sharing that. So, and then I think a little bit of virality too with different stuff. So right now they're not big money makers by any means. But I'm trying where I see us going is I'd love to continue the client work. I think client work is good. I also think it keeps you kind of humble. Because if you're just creating stuff that just like everyone loves, like you just be like, you think you're just, too cool for school. So, I like the opportunity to serve people and create client stuff, but I'd like to like augment that with like even half of our revenue, with that maybe a dream is from like our own content, primarily from YouTube channels, where we're creating stuff like, people, they probably ask you guys too. It's like, oh, are you going to make a narrative feature film? Like, is that like the dream? Cause I feel like that's as a filmmaker, like if that's not the dream, then like, people don't like take you serious. I think that would be great. But the people that I've known that have made features that are narratives, it sucks like 3 or 4 years of their life. Like it's in some of them it was a success, and other ones it wasn't, and it was just sort of like, and even ones like I knew a few people that like they got in theaters, they had a theatrical run, but it just didn't. Some of them did good, and some other ones like didn't, and it was just like, I don't have that much energy to do that. And so I feel more passionate about like shorter form content and trying to grow that. Because like if a big feature hits, yeah, you could make some serious money, but you could also lose it all too. And so to me, it's like betting it all on black, right? Like, okay, like $1 million on black, where it's like, I'd rather bet like $500, slowly and build that up. And I think like what's interesting about YouTube to me, or just like building up your own sort of like distribution, is like you have an audience and you can kind of do like, I won't say anything, but if you have a loyal audience, no matter what you create, if you then are going to create a narrative, like you have a built-in sort of platform and group of people that will support it. And so a hard part is like, it's that consistency, posting weekly or more than once a week. So that's a challenge. But I don't know. I enjoy that. That's kind of gives where I see life coming, and I hope in the years to come, we can. I got like the silver plaque. I'm going for that gold one, the 1 million subscribers. That's like
nice.
The gold
How long did it take to get to 500,000?
For one of the channels, 10 years. For 300,000, 10 years. The kids one actually grew the fastest. So we had like 10,000 subs for probably about a year, and then this past year it just exponentially grew. And so I would say we grew probably about 450,000 subs in maybe say 6 months time.
That's crazy.
Wow. What do you think attributed that, like specifically? Because that's such a huge growth in such a short time.
Lent was a big thing. So Lent for Christians or Catholics is like 40 days leading up to Easter. And it's like, there's just a lot of like rituals and stuff that go with that, and fasting and different things. And so we created a ton of content in that time. And people, I think, were thirsty for it. And there's not I would say one of the wider open spaces, like especially on YouTube, there's not much faith-based stuff, specifically Catholic stuff for kids. And so we filled that gap. And so it slowed down, unfortunately. Like I was like, oh man, we're going to hit 1 million by like October, and it doesn't look like that way. It ebbs and flows. And I think like it was kind of depressing because like we were growing so much, and then like once we stopped like growing, but we were still like we were doing this, and then once we started doing like this, I was like kind of depressed. But I was like, we're still doing good, but like you have like, I don't know, you get like a certain like used to growth at a certain thing, and if you don't keep that up, then you feel like you're just like a loser. And so being like able to like go through like just the ebbs and flows of it, because it all ebbs and flows, and and it's one time, I mean, this goes back to probably like 12 years ago, but one of our YouTube channels got deleted, and we had like a decent amount of stuff on there. It's like we had like maybe like 2 million views, and we probably had like 20 or 30,000 subscribers. And I don't know, I logged in one day and it was like, you violated a term of YouTube, and it's no longer there. And I'd like reached out to them.
Yeah, you reached out to them and they just told you. Did they tell you the reason why though?
No, they gave me none. It's like, it was just one of our terms. And this is a while ago. This was like probably 2011, and I was like,
that's way back.
yeah. So I mean, I don't even know if Google acquired them at that point. Yeah.
They did. Google acquired them in like 2006, 2007. Like YouTube came out in 2005, and I think Google got them more like 2008 actually. But like I do remember the early 2010s, like they were still trying to figure out so many different rules on YouTube's side. So if you got something randomly deleted or anything like that, like back then it was like the Wild West. You didn't know what was happening. They had illegal TV shows and movies like everywhere, so they were scrambling to try to figure out ways to kind of like combat other things. Like
You probably used a copyrighted song or something
like that. Like, yeah, everyone used copyrighted music back then, but because we didn't know, like when we first started making videos, we just used whatever song we wanted, thinking it was fine. And then when you started realizing, oh, you should actually be paying for this stuff, it's like, okay, now we got to do it proper.
How's the pay from the YouTube, from YouTube? What's it called? AdSense? Is that the one they use?
So we haven't, the one that has the biggest things, the kids thing, we haven't monetized that yet. Namely because we were trying to like, it gets touchy with like kids content too, and like parents, and especially faith-based stuff, because sometimes the ads that are running. So we were trying to kind of go the Patreon route where, hey, we're doing ad free, but support us on Patreon. We don't really necessarily have the support Patreon. So long story short, I don't know. I can't give you an answer on that one because we haven't run ads. And then coincidentally, we haven't run ads on the other one either, because we take, that one's run through the nonprofit. So we get donations. So that one kind of runs through people supporting it through donations, which is great. And then the kids one, we're trying to figure out the model for that. But
why didn't you want to do Patreon? What was the reason for it?
We are, but people aren't. I think Patreon, it's from what I've seen, like it's gotta follow like a certain thing. Like I think you gotta have it's for an older crowd. And the content, like because it's kids content, like the kids aren't gonna watch or go on Patreon. It's just gonna be the parents, but there's not much incentive for that. Like I think what does well is certain podcasts do good for Patreon that are like for like an adult crowd, that they can like, there's the free podcast on whatever, and then you get like the an extra one on Patreon or something, where you kind of have a little community. But it's not
even then it doesn't work. To be honest, not always.
That's true.
We tried it. It failed miserably.
Yeah, because like we originally thought like, okay, maybe we need to figure out some way to kind of monetize this podcast in a way to kind of help support it a little bit more. Because in the beginning when we started, it took a lot of time from our day to produce an episode, like a lot of time, especially when we were doing everything super manual. Like the very first few episodes, if you look back, we would get together, Dario and I, because it was during the pandemic. Like just to give you a little quick backstory, we started the podcast because work disappeared for us, and we wanted to do something on a weekly basis to keep us sane and give us some kind of consistency, which was nice. So what we did was we would get together in this tiny office here in my place and set up 3 cameras and 2 lights and have our guests on a tiny little laptop in the corner that would talk to us through Zoom. So like our guest would be this pixelated Zoom call, and then we would have like this production.
And it was August, and Kirill's place has like no AC, so we were sweating. 2 grown men with lights on them, sweating. Like can't see the guest.
Yeah, but then after like then we realized, let's just do this all virtual. So that started to save some time, and we did that.
But then the editing was taking a while.
The editing takes a while.
That's the biggest time-consuming part of it.
Yeah, essentially we realized like this show, like what we want to do with it, like it's hard to monetize something like this, especially at the scale that it is and how specific our niche is. So we wanted to figure out a way to kind of like continue to do it, but also not take up too much time as well, right? So yeah, like Patreon is not something that like you have to really give a must offer, not a must offer. What is it? Like a very attractive offer for people to do it. Like you have to give them more value than what they would really be paying for in order for it to work. Having an uncut episode is not really much of an incentive, to be honest. Unless, I don't know, unless you're Joe Rogan, but even he doesn't do that. So
yeah, he does like 3-hour episodes.
Yeah, it's hard. Monetizing your own content is a challenge. There's no like cookie cutter thing. I think it depends on your audience. It depends on what what you want them to do, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. So yeah, it's a challenge, man. Like it's not easy, but I think I respect and I appreciate what you guys have been doing and like being consistent, because I think that's the hardest part about any creator that's doing their own stuff, is to be consistent. It's like we get an idea, we do it really good for like 3 months or 6 months, and then like the energy or like the newness phase falls off, and then it's like and then you get less consistent. But the consistency is key, man. So key.
Yeah, we're still trying to keep we're trying to keep that going. Like we've had stretches of different breaks. Like when we first did it, we did it in 2020, and then we took 2021 as like a break to kind of like focus on the business and build it. And then we decided it would be good to bring it back. And I think we were doing on average like 15 to 20 episodes a year. And then this year, once we kind of like narrowed down like our process, like now we're trying to get it to the weekly basis. Like right now on average, we're like 1 every 2 weeks, which is a lot more than what it used to be, which is great. And now we're trying to get it back to being a consistent once a week type thing. And with the new approach, we can do it. And hopefully people are still enjoying it, so some of our few OG fans, our 5 biggest fans. And
I wonder who our OG fans are. Like, get in touch with us. I'm curious who you are.
Yeah. Comment down.
Who's been here since episode 1?
My mom.
I love moms. Yeah, I love
the
moms.
You think he's lying? He's not wrong. It probably is.
One last thing I wanted to also ask you about. You mentioned your studio space is what, 20,000 square feet? You said, was that correct?
Yeah, give or take. So it's they call it an industrial condo, what we're in. So it's like a big building. There's 12 units with each of those, and so we occupy 5 of those units. And they're about. I'm just not good at math. I should have probably went to that interview you talked about. I think they're each about 7,500 square feet a piece. We have 5.
That's massive, man.
Because the reason I'm asking is like aside from housing the team there, and like everyone needs office space and stuff like that, like what other aspects do you have, or like what other parts do you have? Do you have like a dedicated studio space where you film stuff? Do you have like an audio recording suite, an editing suite? I guess numerous editing suites is one thing, but like what does that entail?
Yeah, so we have kind of your standards are just offices that admin stuff work out of. We have about 3 or 4 rooms that editing works out of. And then some of the things that occupy a large amount of space is we have 2 sound stages. One's pretty big, I would say. I mean, pretty big for us is relative. It's like maybe 25 feet by 14 feet, and then like 15-foot ceilings. So it's basically a big black box. We got a sound treated. We got a grid on top, and so most of our filming is in there. We have a smaller stage that we run one of our YouTube channels out of, which because we're doing weekly stuff, so it's like it's just for that. A small green room. We have a decent amount of a pretty big gear space too. So we have like a camera room that all of our cameras and lenses are in. That's like secure, and then we have a larger space for our like more of our grip stuff. So our stands and lights and all that. And then this was a huge luxury, and I know it's a little bit of a humble brag, but we have a garage that we can load the car in, because for years
Nice.
we load outside.
Yeah, that's
Chicago
great.
winters are terrible, and so
Wow.
loading in like the cold weather. So we'll pull in the cold weather, we'll pull the vehicles in. It's got a big bay door, and we'll load up, and and we can even leave the vehicle in overnight if we're like leaving early the next day. So that's great. And then a couple conference rooms and such. And then just we have like actually at one of the whole top floors of one of them is just storage. So like our props, just like you collect a lot of crap after a while too. And,
Yeah, I know.
we probably could do without like maybe like 5,000. Like if I just like clean house, but I'm so nostalgic for like everything, I just don't throw anything out. So some of it is just storage in some of the areas, but you never know when you might need this random prop that we bought 5 years ago.
A note. You never know when you need that notebook or that pen or that clipboard. It can come in handy. But that's great, man. Honestly, you sound like you're living a lot of other production companies' dreams in terms of the resources that you've been able to accumulate. And congratulations for that. Honestly, like it's not an easy feat, and it's always great to hear how successful a lot of people can become in this industry, and yeah, kudos.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and anyone out there that's like wants to be at that. I mean, it takes time. Be patient, and also know too, like there isn't. I thought, well, once I have like so many employees, I'll be happy. Like I'm just as happy now as I was back then, or I'm just as unhappy now as I was, back then. So I think like just being it's because you're always looking at what's next. You're always and you're always looking at what's next, and always also like frustrated about all the problems you have now, and like you never get to this happy spot. Maybe when you retire and if you sell your company for like a ton of money and you could just like sit on a beach, but then you have nothing. Like the problem, you're bored.
You do have the beach though.
You do get the beach. I mean, there's a couple lines, but. I just encourage anyone, and maybe it's just I'm saying this for myself. It's just like appreciate where you are, because it could always get worse. And better doesn't mean better. Like you think like the problems. Maybe this is a little too spiritual, but I would argue that the problems you're going through are made for you to become a better person. And so like hug that cactus. They say like hug that problem. Because that problem is there to make you better, even if you don't want it. So,
I think I have a cactus back there. I'll go try that out.
you can sit on it or in the arm.
Sit on it. Ooh, painful. Rob, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.